Hello guys, and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be doing my final 2022 mock draft of the regular season. The season's about to come to an end and the prospect seasons are pretty much over, so the next time I'll do one is right before the draft, but as for now, this is going to be my last one. And also, I did do a tankathon to get a draft order, so I'll put it up right here, right now. Bam, there's the tankathon thing, should be right there. But that is the order that we'll be picking in. Really, it was a pretty boring draft lottery. Montreal moves down a spot, Arizona moves up a spot, and everybody else stays in the exact same area. So let's get straight into it, starting off with the first overall pick at this draft, because I'm going to be doing it as a simulation. And with the first overall pick, I think that the Arizona Coyotes will select centerman from the OHL, Shane Wright. As much as I think Shane Wright is overrated and won't be that superstar player that I think a lot of people think he'll be, I just don't see him getting past the first overall pick because he's still a solid player and he still has like a good amount of potential that I can't see the team picking for skipping on. And Arizona, this would really help their pool a lot, and like their prospect pool, and there's no way they skip on Shane Wright. Shane Wright in 56 games in the OHL has 28 goals, 55 assists for 83 points, and his offense has turned up recently. He started off really slow, but as of recent, he has picked it up on about a 2-point per game pace in the second half of the season, which is a lot better. But yeah, I'm not fully convinced with Shane Wright. I don't know exactly what he'll be. He should be a pretty safe pick. I'd expect his potential to end up being either a below average first line center or maybe even a good second line center. But yeah, I don't think he'll end up being a superstar, but still a solid NHL player. But now moving on to the second pick, and the second pick is the Montreal Canadiens. They moved down, voice crack there. They moved down one spot from where they originally were, and with this spot, I think the Montreal Canadiens draft centerman from the Liga, Juraj Slafkovsky. Juraj Slafkovsky was much lower. He's moved up 14 spots since the last time I did a mock draft, because the last time I did one, the Olympic Games hadn't happened yet, and man, he really proved how good of a player he really can be at those Olympic Games. Slafkovsky in the Liga, though, 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points in 31 games. Not as impressive numbers, but I still think he'll end up being a very solid NHL player one day. Juraj Slafkovsky has a big body, big frame, and he just really big overall. But he knows how to use his size very effectively, and he's a very good power forward and loves to get physical. And I love players who get physical on the ice, you know? You love to see some hits. So Juraj Slafkovsky, I think he could really help Montreal and be a cornerstone to them for their future rebuild that they're going through right now. But now moving on to the third pick, and with the third pick is the Seattle Kraken. And I think that Seattle Kraken this is going to be a bit of an odd one. People are going to be maybe a little bit weirded out by this one, but I think Seattle selects center/right winger from the USHL, Frank Nazar. Frank Nazar has rose up my rankings a ton. He has moved up right here. Let's see, how much has he moved up? 7 spots. Okay, he's moved up 7 spots since the last time I did a mock draft, and I was just so impressed with him. I watched some of his highlights. I watched everybody on this list highlights, and Frank Nazar stood out a lot. He looks very good, very fast, very skilled. And also, every scouting report has nothing bad to say. He's good defensively, he's good offensively, he's skilled, he's fast, he's so good. And I do have him above Logan Cooley, who is it his teammate? I don't know. But I have him above Logan Cooley because I like Frank Nazar more. The points may be a little slower than Logan Cooley, very, very minor, but I do like him more. And for Seattle, a team that's in need of forwards, really any prospect at this point, I think they go with the best player available, who in my opinion is Frank Nazar. But now moving on to the 4th overall pick. And drafting at number 4 is the Ottawa Senators. And I think that the Ottawa Senators will select, I forgot to turn the page, so I'll do that now. Centerman from the WHL, Matthew Savoie. Matthew Savoie has slowed down recently. His offense was booming at the start. He was leading the NHL in points. And it's definitely come to a little bit of I wouldn't say a halt, but he's slowed down quite a bit. But still a player that I think will be a very good NHLer someday, and a guy who I think has that potential to be a first-line center. Matthew Savoie is also a very good power play guy. So his only really big flaw that I see is that his size. He's 5'9", but honestly, I don't think size matters. But Matthew Savoie, very impressive. And Ottawa needs a bit of depth offensively, and I think Matthew Savoie could really fit into their top 6 someday. But now moving on to the 5th overall pick, and drafting at number 5 is the New Jersey Devils. And New Jersey Obviously got Luke Hughes last year. Jack Hughes is looking good. Nico Hischier. They got a very good young team. And what's better to even add more to that? Like, they're going to be a good team someday. But with this pick, I think that they draft centerman from the USHL, Logan Cooley. Logan Cooley, I have him below Frank Nazar, but that's no hit to Logan Cooley. That's just because I like Frank Nazar. Logan Cooley, I still think, is a very good, very talented and fast forward and skilled, who can put up a lot of points, especially at his level. But his main critique, again, his size. There are a lot of smaller people in this draft. But yeah, Logan Cooley, really a very solid center who someday I could see being a skilled player for New Jersey, who is already a very skilled young team that's coming together. And next year, who knows, maybe if Logan Cooley can come up right away for this team, if they draft him, then they could really make a run for the playoffs. But drafting at number 6 is the Philadelphia Flyers, and I think Philadelphia takes a swing at right winger from the Liga, Joakim Kemell. I really like Joakim Kemell, but I'm not sold on him completely. He had a really good start. Some of his goals were lucky, some may say, but he went to a complete dead stop, no points forever. But lately he's picked it up again, which is nice to see. And the thing is, also, his World Junior performance wasn't amazing. He didn't stand out at all, but Joakim Kemell, I do believe in him. He's very good at finding open space. He has a good shot. His only weakness really is he's so streaky, and I just don't know what to expect from him. And some of his goals are lucky, so I really hope he turns out well. His point totals are very solid in the Liga. And Philadelphia, a team that I don't know what they're doing, really. I really don't know what they're doing. But Joakim Kemell can't hurt, I guess. But I really have no idea what Philadelphia is doing with their team right now. But now on to number 7, and this pick would have been the Blackhawks. But, oh no, the Blackhawks traded away for Seth Jones at 8 years at $9.5 million to Columbus. And because it is not a top 2 pick, or top 3, I believe, is protected, and because it did not win in the draft lottery, it is still Columbus's. So Columbus, with this 7th overall pick, I think that they go for last year they drafted a ton of centers. This year I think they need to get a good defensive prospect, and this is where I think the first defenseman will go, and that is defenseman from Slovakia, Simon Nemec. I think he will be the first defenseman to go. I think he is the best defenseman in this draft class who has the greatest potential, which is apparently a top pairing defenseman. Simon Nemec, in 39 games in the Slovakia League, has 1 goal, 25 assists for 26 points, and he's really just a guy who can do it all. He's good offensively, he's solid offensively, he's good hockey IQ, he's good at passing, and he's pretty good defensively as well. So really solid all around at a young age, good develop, and should be a pretty good transition to the NHL level for Simon Nemec, and I expect him to be the first drafted defenseman at this draft. And now I'm going to get the new page out. But now moving on to number 8, and drafting 8 is my second favorite team behind the Oilers, the Buffalo Sabres, who I think will be a good team coming up here. I'm really hoping so. But Buffalo, I think they take a bit of a risk at this draft, drafting centerman or right winger from the Liga, Brad Lambert. Interestingly enough, Brad Lambert is in the exact same spot that he was last time I did this. And Brad Lambert, really, I do really like him because although his Liga stats may not be very good, he showed how good he can be at the World Juniors. And I don't know, I think Brad Lambert's better than what his stats in the Liga show. He had a change of scenery, didn't do much. Like in Atu Ratu's case, he changed scenery, put up a ton of points, but for Lambert, didn't quite happen. But I love how physical Lambert is. I love how fast and skilled he is. And I think that someday he will be a top 6, maybe a first-line guy even. I just think he needs to figure some things out and get more opportunity. But I don't know. I don't know what's up in the Liga, but I think he's better than his stats show. But now moving on to number 9, and at number 9 is the Detroit Red Wings, and the Detroit Red Wings have drafted a few defensemen recently. You know, Maurice Sider just came up, Simone Evanson last year, a goalie last year in Kosa, and I think it's time that they add to their forward prospect pool. And I think that they will draft left winger from the USDP, Isaac Howard. Isaac Howard in 73 games has 36 goals, 63 assists, 401 points, and he is very solid all around. Now he has more points than Cooley, has more points than Nazar, but I just don't see him as much of a standout talent as those guys, although he does have a lot of points. And Isaac Howard is a little on the small side, but I do see him ending up being a solid player for the Detroit Red Wings someday, possibly. I'd see around that top 6 potential range for Isaac Howard in that area. But now moving on to the 10th overall pick. In drafting at number 10, the Anaheim Ducks, I think they will select defenseman from the WHL, Denton Mateychuk. Denton Mateychuk has moved down 3 spots, but that's just because, you know, I've learned more information going through the highlights and reading all the scouting reports. At least I'd like to think so. But Denton Mateychuk, in 59 games in the WHL, has 10 goals, 50 assists for 60 points, and has really turned up his offensive game recently. And he is a guy who I think has the potential to be an elite offensive defenseman. He knows how to, he's very good offensively, but the thing is, you would think you'd expect him to have a lot of defensive flaws, being as good offensively as he is, but really he doesn't. He's very solid on both sides of the ice, obviously more predominantly known for his offensive potential and offensive skill. But this is a guy who Anaheim, with drafting Jamie Drysdale, who's coming up, and a few defensemen leaving like Lindholm and Manson, Denton Mateychuk could really end up being a good offensive defenseman for them in the future. But now moving on to number 11, and drafting at number 11 is the San Jose Sharks, and I think that they will draft defenseman from the OHL, Pavel Mintyukov. Pavel Mintyukov is a guy that I've had my eye on really since the start of the season. I think he's been in every single mock draft I've done throughout the year, around this range. He may have been higher at points, but so far this season, in 60 games, he has 15 goals, 38 assists, 453 points, and it has really been a solid offensive contributor for his team. But the difference between Pavel Mintyukov and Denton Mateychuk is that Mateychuk is pretty solid both sides, pretty good defensively and elite offensively, while Mintyukov does need some work defensively, which is fine. That's how a lot of prospects work when they're young, is that they're not as good defensively, but they usually gain that with experience as they get older. And Mintyukov, I think he has the potential to also be a solid offensive defenseman. And yeah, the Sharks drafted Ekholm last year, and I think they need to get more to their defensive prospect pool. And Mintyukov, I think, definitely adds a lot to that pool. But now moving on to the 12th overall pick. And drafting at 12, I think the Columbus Blue Jackets select forward from the WHL, Jagger Firkus. Firkus is a new guy on this list. Only one person actually on the whole elite prospects list of people in their top 20. Only one person had Jagger Firkus in their top 10. I forget who it is. But honestly, I think he's gone underrated because Firkus in 63 games has 35 goals, 43 assists, 478 points on his WHL team. And honestly, those point totals are pretty close to Matthew Savoie's. Not saying that he's as good as Matthew Savoie or even close to Matthew Savoie, hence why Matthew Savoie is all the way up at 4 and he's at 12. But Jagger Firkus is still a solid player, and he's a good net front presence, and he's really good at getting open and getting those shots off. And he's a guy who someday I could see being a top 6 forward. Nothing crazy, but a solid pick for Columbus, who, despite drafting a defenseman earlier, I think will go for forward because they've already got some good defensive prospects coming up as well. Like, they drafted Korchinski last year, and yeah, they'll be fine, but that's who I think they'll draft this year. But now moving on to the 13th overall pick, this is in a ranking video, but with the 13th overall pick, the New York Islanders, I think that they select right winger from the SHL, Jonathan Lekkerimaki. Jonathan Lekkerimaki in the SHL has 26 goals, 26 games. Man, that would be insane. Oh, my camera. Man, in 26 games, he has 7 goals, 2 assists, 49 points, which really shows how good of a goal scorer he is. But what more shows how good of a goal scorer? Man, I can't do this. Okay. Voice crack, everything's going wrong. What also shows that he is a good goal scorer is his junior 20 national stats, where he has 20 goals in 26 games. So really, Lekkerimaki, a very good goal scorer, and a guy who I think that in the future, the Islanders, they need offensive depth in their pool. They have no offense, and all their forwards are old pretty much. They're getting really old. They're a pretty old team, and they need add some young spice to it, you know? And Lekkerimaki, with his goal-scoring ability, I think he really does that and may someday fit in well. But now moving on to the 14th overall pick, and with the 14th overall pick, I think the Vancouver Canucks select defenseman from the OHL, Ty Nelson. Ty Nelson, in 59 games, has 9 goals, 40 assists for 49 points, and Vancouver desperately needs a defensive prospect. They need a rebuild, they need a defensive prospect. They have a good amount of young forwards, but they don't have any defensemen, along with no cap space. But that's besides the point. They don't have any young defensemen. Obviously, you got Quinn Hughes, and then what? Jack Rathbone? What? These guys aren't going to be crazy good guys, maybe bottom pairing guys, and they lost Ole Levy, who was supposed to be good. So Ty Nelson, a really needed prospect for the Canucks, who I think someday could help them put some solid offensive numbers on the back end. And now moving on to the 15th overall draft pick. And with the 15th overall pick, I think that the Winnipeg Jets select defenseman from the Czechia League, David Jiricek. David Jiricek in 29 games only has 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points, which is fine offensively. But with David Jiricek, you're not really drafting him for his offensive potential. You're drafting him because he's very good defensively as well. A very well-rounded defenseman who may not project to be a elite offensive defenseman. Just a solid defenseman who can play in your top 4 and eat up minutes. And with a late round pick, or a late first round pick, I think he's definitely worth it. I wouldn't draft him in my top 10, But as a late round pick, drafting a guy who has the potential, or like a very safe pick, who should be a top 4 defenseman for your team someday in the future, especially a team like Winnipeg, who doesn't have any defensive prospects right now, I think it's a very good draft pick and not much of a risk either. So a very good pick to take for Winnipeg. But now moving on to the 16th overall pick, which would be Vegas's, but no, it's Buffalo's, baby. Let's go. Jack Eichel trade. Okay, looking pretty good so far with that trade, you know. Anyway, with the 16th overall pick, that's the Buffalo Sabres. I think the Sabres will draft center/left winger from the USHL cutter Gauthier. I might have pronounced that wrong, but Gauthier in 66 games has 50 goals, 27 assists for 77 points. And really, he is a pure goal scorer. This guy knows how to get open, he's got a good shot, and he has spurts of speed that can get him into open areas where he just knows how to score. He's a pure goal scorer, and this is exactly what I think he projects to be in the NHL. He's a big body, big frame, and that kind of works with the Buffalo's whole thing right now. You know, they're a pretty big team, as I said earlier with Lambert. Lambert adds that physicality. Gauthier adds that size and that scoring ability, and I think he would fit right in with the Buffalo Sabres plans and their whole team and their stick right now, the way they're built. But now moving on to the 17th overall pick, and with the 17th overall pick, we're now out of the draft lottery area, which means we go to teams that would have been eliminated from the playoffs. And according to Tankathon, that team is the Oilers, which is really sad because although it's expected, you know, my first favorite team, I don't want them to be out like that, you know, not again. It's expected, but not again. Just win one round, maybe 2, or go to the Cup. That would be great as well. But with this pick, I think the Edmonton Oilers select defenseman from the WHL, Korchinski. Korchinski, although his offensive numbers are very good, 55 points in 61 games, the reason he drops this low is because, A, a lot of those are assists, and he's on a pretty good team, so he could be getting a pretty simple assist, you know, like Tyson Barrie assists, where you're passing it to the McDavid, and he scores. And you didn't do anything. You passed to McDavid, dekes around 5 guys, scores. It's an assist. But Korchinski, the main reason he drops is his defensive play also needs a lot of work. He tends to be bad with making quick decisions and also turns over the puck quite a bit in his defensive end. So there are a lot of holes, and at this point, you're looking at maybe more of a project rather than a prospect. But with a late round pick and Edmonton needing a good offensive defenseman, maybe even a defensive defenseman, but an offensive defenseman would be nice, and I think Edmonton could take a risk on Kevin Korchinski. But now moving on to the 18th overall pick, and with the 18th overall pick, I think the Dallas Stars will select left winger from the SHL, Liam Ohgren. Liam Ohgren in 25 games only has 1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points in the SHL, so those numbers aren't very flattering, they don't look great. But then we look further into his U20 National stats, and in the U20 National, he has in 30 games, 33 goals, 25 assists for 58 points, where he is absolutely lighting up that league, like over a goal per game, 2 points per game pretty much, and he's really shown that he can be a pure goal scorer. He's really good at finding those open spots and has a very good shot. Now, Dallas Stars, they have a lot of forwards coming up already. Logan Stankoven, I believe, is in their system. Wyatt Johnson, Jason Robertson's already up there. He's fantastic. And this is a team that, despite getting older with their core, could actually have a very good young core also coming up. So a good, good recycling of people there. But Liam Ohgren definitely has the potential to be a good scorer at the NHL level, and I think this would be a solid pick for Dallas and really add more to what is already a good offensive prospect pool for the Dallas Stars. But now moving on to number 19, and with the 19th overall pick, I think the LA Kings will select winger/center from the Slovakia League, Filip Mesar. Filip Mesar in 37 games has 8 goals, 8 assists for 16 points in the Slovakia League, and that might not be some crazy, insane totals or anything. Like, that might not be like even flattering totals, but that's not really everything he's known for. He's also a very solid defensive forward, and in the Kings, you're getting a good two-way guy who may have some offensive potential in the future. But now moving on to the last pick of this mock draft for 2022, and that is going to the Nashville Predators. And the Nashville Predators at 20th pick, I think that they will select centerman from the WHL, Conor Geekie. Now, Conor Geekie, before I read his point totals and everything, there's a bit of an underlying issue there, and that is that he's very inconsistent. He has a lot of holes in his game, and he just doesn't put in a crazy amount of offensive effort into much stuff. Now, there's a lot of red flags with Conor Geekie, like I said, but he has so much skill and so much size that I still think he manages to push his way into the top 20, but I will drop him out. I will drop him out of the top 20. He barely made it, barely. In 57 games, 21 goals, 42 assists for 63 points, and there was more expected of him before we got into the season. There was more offensive potential expected of him. I believe that he would be one of the leading point scorers, but he's not even one of the leading point scorers on his team. Matthew Savoie is, and yes, they are actually on the same team, which I found pretty interesting. But Conor Geekie, a guy, he's more of a project right now than a prospect, but Nashville may be willing to take that risk if they have a late round first, if they do get out in the first round. But Conor Geekie really needs to fix a lot of problems in his game. There are a lot of holes. But thank you for watching if you are still here watching this video. Let's see, I've recorded for 36 minutes, so there's going to be a lot to cut out, a lot to edit. But again, thanks for watching if you are still here. I hope you enjoyed this mock draft, and it's time to get back to more regular NHL content that I've been doing. You know, players that do this, whatever, I don't care, who knows. But yeah, that's the end of the video. So I'm just standing here speaking stuff, who knows, not making any sense. Most of you have left by now because I'm just rambling on. By the way, happy April Fool's Day. Yeah, I didn't do anything for April Fool's Day. I did not do anything for April Fool's Day, although I did get tricked pretty good today. I'll talk about it later, but yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Let's go Buffalo, get the first overall pick. Hopefully getting some Shane Wright would be nice, or Juraj Slafkovsky, I like him. That'll be a W right there.